Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC 286 Edwards versus Usman 3. I just finished the pay-per-view. I feel good for one reason. The main event didn't get screwed over by wonky judging because all three judges were just on a different plane today. And then also, my ears can finally be relieved of the annoying commentary that is Michael Bisping. I'm sure some MMA guru has already talked about this numerous times. People have already talked about this numerous times. I was on Twitter today, and before I even get started, real quick, everyone talks about how DC's commentary is insufferable. It's really not bad. It's really not that bad, nor is it bad in general. It's only bad, and we'll get to it later, when he talks about, I thought this person won the round. That was bad, given the fact that he thought that Usman won the fourth round. That's doofiness. That's just shitty scorecard. DC continues to not know how to score cards. And Anik today, too, by the way, who said something else that I'll pick up on later into the video. But besides all that, Bisping just can't shut up for force. He has to go on long-winded talks about one thing. But when it's time for him to actually babble about something, he doesn't want to. An example being, he'll babble on about how great Casey O'Neill striking was, even though she was getting outstruck heavy. I mean, she arguably lost all three rounds, even though two judges gave her the last round because she was slightly more effective. Interesting. But he won't talk about how Mokaev isn't active when he's on top of somebody. I remember if I were Gaethje fought somebody and wrestle fucked him for 3 rounds, and Bisping was like, it's not, sorry to bring this up again, but he's not active. This is a boring fight. Some people would say, I'm not saying that, but does that all the time. Every time Gaethje fight, at least in his the last 2 of his 3 fights that he had. But Mokaev will do something and he'll go, oh man, Mokaev's dealing with the shoulder. Oh my God, he wants to be the youngest champ. Not talking about the fact that this guy is not active on the ground. Nobody hates wrestlers. They just hate wrestlers that don't do anything on the ground. But that's beyond the point. My ears are clear now. Let's get down to the fight. There is an injustice on this card. Someone got robbed. And for full clarity, I had to rewatch it because even when I scored this certain round for the other fighter, in the back of my head, I was like, this round's kind of weird. It's kind of wonky. Maybe I missed it, right? So I just scored it the way I scored it, and then boom. And then I saw later on when everyone was like, he got robbed. Cool. So I just waited, finished the card, rewatched it, boom. We have an injustice. Murphy versus Santos. On first watch, I was like, they robbed Santos. On second watch, they still robbed Santos. Okay, I had this 29-28 for Santos. I gave the first 2 rounds to Santos. Okay. The round of contention is the second round. That's the mixy round, okay? And then the third round I gave to Murphy. You go to the descriptions. You go to the descriptions. In that first round, Santos had 2 takedowns, and he outstruck Murphy on the feet. That's pretty clear. In the second round, both had a takedown, with a little bit of shots added in for both of their takedowns. The difference in this one, though, was that both were fairly equal on the feet. All right, and then when it came down to the ground, not only did Santos have more control time on the ground, but he outstruck him on the ground. On the feet, he dropped Murphy with a leg kick. And also, this one's a little maybe harder to say, but he didn't have a submission attempt, but he was much more active with his control time than Murphy was. 100%, given that he went for submissions. None of them were in. That's what I'm trying to explain. None of them were in. None of the submissions were in. When he went for the rear naked choke, that was not in. When he went for the armbar, that wasn't in. Murphy swimmed out of it. And right when Murphy got on top, that's when the round ended. This round is for Santos, but for some reason the judges were just insanely wonky. You have Mark Collette. He gives the first 2 rounds to Santos and the last round to Murphy. This is the correct scorecard. This scorecard reflects mine. I say that often. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, but I'm just saying that just to say it. That's the correct scorecard. You then go to Vito Palio and Clemens Werner, who both have the same scorecard. They give the first round to Santos. Then they give the second round to Murphy and the third round to Murphy. Nonsense. It all comes down to the second round. In no way did they were practically even on the feet. And even before they got down to where they were on the ground for a little bit, Santos was outstriking him by a very little margin. There's no way that you in your head can go, yeah, Lerone Murphy was outstriking Santos on the feet, and then what happened on the ground happened. Because when you got down to the ground, they were fairly even on strikes on the ground, even though Santos still, again, what I'm saying is Santos outstruck him on the ground and on the feet, was more active on the ground. There's no way Murphy wins this round. Injustice, Santos got robbed. We go to the honorable mentions because that's what this show has become. I mean, no one gets robbed often, but we go to the honorable mentions. First honorable mention, Herbert versus Klein. Okay, this fight ended in a majority draw. In that first round, my scorecard reads: in the first round I gave to Herbert, second round I gave to Klein, and then the third round I gave to Herbert, but minus the point deduction for the groin shot. It's a 9-9 round, making it 28-20 on my scorecard. You go to the descriptions. Klein had a takedown with very little ground and pound, some light shots. If anything, he wasn't really active. It's almost like he just kind of held Herbert down there and then just landed a couple body shots, maybe a head strike here, but it wasn't enough because Herbert outstruck him on the feet, and also was more active than he was on was more active than Klein was on top. Herbert was very active on the bottom, and that's how you get that round. You go to the second round, Klein just outstruck Herbert, clear as day, and then the third round, it's close on the feet. Okay, then both of them get a takedown, but Herbert gets the takedown towards the end, and lands he takes the round. A lot of ground and pound by him, more ground and pound than Klein, and outstruck Klein in totality, and that's what kind of saved him this fight. If not, then, as you know, maybe Klein would have won this round. But either way, Herbert saves that round and makes it a 9-9 round with the point deduction, 28-28. You go to the judges' scorecards. All right. Mark Collette, his scorecard reflects mine, 28-28. Clemens Werner, his scorecard reflects mine as well, 28-28. And then David Letheby, he gives the second round. He gives the second round to Herbert. Honorable mention to David Letheby. Terrible. I mean, Herbert was outstruck in this round. There's no way on planet Earth that you give this round to Jai Herbert. There was a lot of, you hear this often when you go overseas, people get home cooking. There was I don't want to say there was some home cooking, because that's not fair. I think there was just slight wonky scorecards, but in a way, there wasn't home cooking, because if there were home cooking, I'll get to it in a second, but the Wood fight with Carolina would have been 30-27 on all scorecards. That would have been home cooking. This isn't home cooking. I'm sorry. Yeah, it would have been 30-27 on all scorecards. They didn't give her one of the rounds. So there was a lot of weird and questionable rounds that were given, and I don't want to accuse anyone of home cooking, but just a bad score. Honorable mention to David Letheby. We go to the next honorable mention. It's Wood versus Carolina. I had this 30-27 on all scorecards. I put a close marker on the second round. It's kind of close. You can actually argue the second round for Carolina. So if anything, this could be a 29-28 for Wood at the least. At the very least. This fight ended in a split decision, obviously. in that first round. Okay, in that first round, Wood outstruck Carolina. Simple. A lot of missed shots. This fight and the Dolidze versus Vettori fight, in particular by Dolidze, a lot of missed shots. And the commentary just. We'll get to the commentary again. This fight, before I even get to the description, Bisping babbled on for, I think, 10 hours. This fight was 15 minutes. He babbled on for 10 hours. 10 hours talking about just nonsense. I mean, there was a point where he's talking about Carolina strikes, and Wood is outstriking her. And he just kept babbling. That's fine. Whatever. We'll go to the descriptions. Again, first round, Wood outstruck Carolina. Second round, it was close on the feet, but you give the edge to Wood, in my opinion, because towards the end of the round, it was close up until the end of the round where Wood kind of landed some combos and kind of distanced herself a little bit. I feel like in this round, Carolina missed a lot. There was talk about, oh, she's doing better in this round. Oh, she's landing. There was a lot of missed shots by Carolina. She just was more active than Wood, but she wasn't outstriking her, in my opinion. You go to the third round. Wood outstruck Carolina. Again, it was close, but towards the end, it was definitely Wood. It was all Wood in this round. And that's how I got 30-27 on my scorecard. You go to the judges' scorecard. David Lethaby, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Vito Palio, he gave the first round to Carolina. That's awful. That's actually awful. Honorable mention him just straight away. I don't give a fuck. Gives the second round to Wood. So gives the second round to Wood. Cool. That's fine. I gave the second round to Wood. I don't know why my voice jumped up there. The third round gives to Carolina. This is nonsense. I'm lost. Now I'm just lost on this fucking scorecard. Honorable mention to him. Then Ben Cartlidge gives the first two rounds to Wood. Last round to Carolina. Honorable mention to Ben Cartlidge. I'm having an aneurysm just reading these. You go to the next honorable mention. My least favorite fighter. I hope no one puts that against me. Mokaev versus Filho. I believe it's Filho. This fight ended in a submission for Mokaev, but in the first round, I gave the first round to Mokaev. In the second round, I gave to Filho. In the back of my head, I felt like they weren't going to give the second round to Filho. Just the way they talk about Mokaev makes me feel like there's home cooking. So the second round they gave to Filho, or I gave to Filho. Excuse me. On the description, Mokaev had a takedown and ground and pound for about 3 minutes, maybe 2+ minutes, but he stayed on top and landed a little bit of ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. You go to the second round, which is really interesting, right? Filho was outstriking Mokaev on the feet for pretty much the majority of the round. Mokaev then gets a takedown at about the 1 minute mark. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking they're going to fucking give it to him because, Filho didn't land anything crazy. He landed significant strikes, but nothing that, was appealing. It was a boring fight up until the third round. What was it? No, second round submission attempt. Was it the second round submission attempt? No, third round submission. Wherever the crazy submission happened where Mokaev didn't tap. That might have been the third, maybe. In this round, in the second round, Filho was outstriking Mokaev on the feet. Mokaev gets a takedown, lands like very little ground. I'm talking little to no ground and pound. That, if you were just being honest here, if you're counting strikes, which I was doing, if he just went crazy with his hands, I feel like he's afraid to just not let go of the person, or he's afraid that he's going to lose the position. If he had just let his hands go crazy, he could have stolen that second round. Anyways, he lands very little ground and pound, so little that Filho was more active on the bottom than Mokaev was on top. It's obviously Filho's round, and then in the third round, Mokaev gets the submission win. You go to the next honorable mention. go to the next honorable mention, is Duncan versus Morales. I had this. This ended in a split decision, obviously, but I had the last 2 rounds I gave to Duncan. This was 29-28 on my scorecard. You read the description. It was close on strikes in that first round, but Morales was still outstruck him by the end. It's close on strikes, not in the sense that I don't know who outstruck who, but it's close on strikes in the sense that Morales still definitely outstruck Duncan. You go to the second round. Duncan outstruck Morales. Most of it, or at least I'll say a lot of it, were clinch strikes. They were just knees in the clinch. He just held him against he was attempting to get a takedown and landed a bunch of knees there and outstruck him mostly by that. Duncan did on Morales. And then in the third round, Duncan had a takedown. Duncan had 2 takedowns and outstruck Morales in totality on the ground and on the feet. Boom, his round for sure. You go to the judges' scorecards. You go to the judges' scorecards and I don't think I read. Hold on, let me backtrack here a little bit. I don't think I read the Mokaev thing. I'm gonna zoom back to Mokaev real quick. Ben Cartlidge, his scorecard reflects mine. Chris Lee, he gives the second round to Mokaev, honorable mention to Chris Lee. And then Paul Sutherland, his scorecard reflects mine. Now back to the Duncan fight. I'm all over the place here, I'm sorry. Boom, the scorecards. So Ben Cartlidge, his scorecard reflects mine. Vito Palio, his scorecard also reflects mine. And then Paul Sutherland, has it 30-27 for Morales. Honorable mention off top. I don't even have to read it to you, but I'm going to anyways. He gives the second round to Morales. Dude got held against the cage and got outstruck. What are you talking about? Honorable mention again. Third round, he got outstruck again and he got taken down twice. That's bad. That doesn't even make sense. This is the worst scorecard of the night by far. 30-27 to Morales. Shoot yourself. Excuse me. Stop. Go to the next honorable mention. Fuck. My head's all over the place. Vettori versus Dolidze. I had this 30-27 for Vettori. This was a simple... I'm tired of these type of fights. This was a simple 30-27. These type of fights remind me of Boudet versus Bretsky. I hope I'm saying the name right. Budai versus Bruzeski. Roundtree versus Dustin Jacoby versus Jacoby. It's one of those fights where one person is getting walked down, but is outstriking the person that is walking them down. We see these so often, and it's weird that nobody can fucking score these correctly. 30-27 Vettori, my scorecard. You read it out. It's pretty simple. There's nothing really to evaluate here. Vettori outstruck Dolidze in the first round, while Dolidze missed a shit ton of strikes. You then go second round, same thing. Vettori outstruck Dolidze. Dolidze missed a shit ton of strikes. You then go to the third round. You guessed it. Vettori outstruck Dolidze, but was slightly more active, so the commentary really had to highlight that. Oh, and also missed a crap ton of strikes. Vettori's head movement was insane. He dodged so many strikes. But for some reason, the commentary was just couldn't acknowledge that, hey, Dolidze's leg is getting, pieced up here. But they acted like it wasn't. So anyways, that's that. You go to the judges' scorecards. Paul Sutherland, his scorecard reflects mine, 30-27. And then David Letherby, Ben Cartlidge, honorable mention just quickly for both of them, gives the first round to Dolidze. Nonsense. He gets outstruck pretty fairly. If this is how we're scoring cards now, where tiny flurries at the end win rounds, then there's no point in this fucking sport. There's no point. Oh, let me get outstruck for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and then, oh, by the way, this person puts it on me for like 4 seconds. Let's give them the... No. You lost. Unless it's like a tight round where the person in the first 4 minutes landed like 7 strikes, and then the flurry, he lands 8, 9, 10. Then, okay, cool. But that's not what this was. You're getting outstruck for the entirety of all 3 of these rounds. You do like a little flurry between one of them, and then the commentary goes... Not saying the commentary influences the judging, I'm just saying. It's just me talking. That's when you have them going, oh, this is a great round for him. No, it's not. He's getting outstruck, and Vettori's dodging all of his strikes. Nuts. We go to another fight where this pissed me off entirely. Okay, Maia versus O'Neill. This fight pisses me off because if this is a man fight, and there's a lot of talk about, male fight and female fights, and a lot of people don't like female fights. I don't care, whatever. That's side commentary. But it just goes to show that either Bisping was there for home cooking. Bisping wouldn't shut up about Leon, and we'll get to that in a second. But if the commentary knew how to score correctly, we wouldn't have people just waffling off at the mouth and talking. Make your case by talking about these scorecards, individual rounds. You have Maia versus O'Neill, where Maia is outstriking O'Neill in all 3 rounds. And let's forget about the 3rd round for a second. We go to the first 2 rounds, where Maia is murdering O'Neill. Okay? O'Neill can't move her head to save her life. And neither can Maia, but it just so happens that she's landing more. She is outstriking her by a wide margin, and the commentary has the need, for some weird reason, to really express, hey guys, O'Neill's landing here. Are we trying to help people's feelings, or are we trying to establish that this person is better than this person? I feel like at the end of I feel like Maia got buried after that fight from a wrestling vocabulary standpoint. What was going on? Anik inflecting. There's a lot of like Anik love online, and I like Anik too. But what the fuck was tonight? First of all, he can't score for shit. We'll talk about that in a second. And then he has the need after Maia is burning O'Neill's face. Oh, a jab by O'Neill. Oh, what a shot by O'Neill. He's like adding sauce to it, as though we're not watching O'Neill's face get pushed back 56 times in the first round. Whatever the amount is in the second round. And in the third round, where O'Neill is slightly more active, so maybe she won that round. Get the fuck out of here. I'm whatever. We read the descriptions as though you didn't understand it before. 1, 2, and the first round, second round, third round, Maia outstruck O'Neill. Boom. You go to the judges' scorecards. Chris Lee gives first 2 rounds to Maia, third round to O'Neill. Honorable mention. No. You go David Letheby, same exact scorecard as Chris Lee. Honorable mention. No. Vettori V Filho gives 30-27. All 3 rounds to Maia. That's the correct scorecard. We're playing too much here. Next honorable mention. This fight, I guess people were kind of... I just looked online. People were kind of like, this is a robbery. This is not... No, we've had some of these rounds, and I hate, this fight reminds me of, what do you call it? It reminds me of Blachowicz and Ankalaev, where at the end of the 5th, they feel, people were just like, oh, I felt like Ankalaev won that fight based off of the 5th round. It's one of those nonsense things where, like, the end of the round kind of dictates your feeling towards the overall fight. But that's not what this is. Okay, I had this 29-28 for Gaethje. Last 2 rounds I gave to Gaethje. Sent it in a majority decision. In the first round, Fiziev outstruck Gaethje. Pretty simple. In the second round, Fiziev was on his way to outstriking Gaethje, but that's just not what happened here. There may be an off chance that he did outstrike Gaethje in this, but not by a large margin, not by much, very little. And what separates this always happens once in a while, right? Very often, actually, but once in a while, is that Gaethje hit him with the much sharper, better shots. Okay? Gaethje may have gotten outstruck here by a little bit, but had the cleaner, heavier strikes on Fiziev, and that wins him the round. There. And then you go to the third round, where Gaethje had a takedown at the very end. At the very end, we don't really care about that. But just demolished Fiziev, outstruck him by a huge margin. Huge margin. You know, and this fight kind of reminds me of the Bobby Green fight. Except in this fight, though, Gaethje had power. Green had, I want to say maybe cardio. And what's funny about this one is, if you put the pace on Fiziev, I guess he'll kind of crumble, I guess. And the thing is, I can't use the 5-round fight he had with Dos Anjos as an example, because in that fight they were pretty slow. It was an Apex fight, and they were pretty much like tech fighting up until round 5, or up until round 4 or 5. they were just techno fighting, very slow. Like, no energy was being heavily expended. So there's that. You go to the judges' scorecards. Paul Sutherland, his scorecard is nuts. He gives the first round to Fiziev. He gives the second round to Fiziev. I disagree, but again, this one's a contentious thing, so I'll leave it. And then the one where I can actually probably boom him on is the third one, a 10-8 for Justin Gaethje. Yes, Justin Gaethje went crazy in this round. It's not a 10-8. It's not a 10-8. I'm not a fan of standing 10-8s. That's just me. But 10-8. No. Nonsense. And this is what kind of made the scorecard wonky. I think he probably just gave that to him because he felt as though, like, oh shit, they're gonna say I gave this to Fiziev. He should have just stood in it and put a 10-9, but whatever. Honorable mention to that. Then you have Mark Collette. His scorecard reflects mine. The last 2 rounds are a 10-9 to Gaethje. And then Clemens Werner, his scorecard has the right fighter, but he fucked up the scorecard. He gives the second round to Fiziev. He gives the first round to Gaethje after Gaethje got fucking outstruck in this round. Gaethje got outstruck in this round entirely. There's no way on this planet that you sit there after the first round and then you go, oh yeah, first round Gaethje. Like you wrote that. He wrote first round Gaethje. Honorable mention to Clemens Werner. That's nonsense. And then we go to the one that these scorecards have me going crazy. Edwards versus Usman, the 3rd edition. Before I even get started, we're going into the 5th round, and Anik declares, yeah, I was leaning towards Usman. Guys, what the fuck? Bro, every week we talk about, yeah, maybe we can't commentate this and score it at the same time. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't. Were they hypnotized by the fact that Usman is going forward but getting outstruck? I'm lost. Pressure doesn't mean you won the fight. This is that nonsense that happened where Menefield, I believe it's Menefield, was like pushing the pace on Knight, but Knight was definitely outstriking him. And they're just like, yeah, I definitely thought Menefield won that. Why did you think Menefield won that? Because he was going for a takedown, not getting the takedown, and getting outstruck? This stuff pisses me off. It hurts my head. I get mad at this. There's no reason for me to even give it. I could just stop doing this. But I'm looking towards the future. Okay. Edwards versus Usman. I had this 48-46. Pretty simple. 48-46. Okay. First round I gave to Edwards. Second round I gave to Usman. For some reason, all the online scores gave this round to Edwards. That makes 0 sense to me. But we'll talk about that. Third round is a 9-9. I had it for Edwards, but minus the point deduction, it's a 9-9. Point deduction for the obvious fence grab. Not the first edition. It's for the obvious second. He kind of put his hand on the fence at first, and then once Kamaru Usman pulled him down, he grabbed all fence. And then the last 2 rounds go to Edwards for sure. The descriptions. First round, Edwards outstruck Usman. A lot of leg kicks. A lot of leg kicks, but he outstruck Usman. You go to the second round. Usman had a takedown, and he outstruck Edwards all around. He outstruck him on the feet, and he had some shots on the ground as well. He outstruck him in that second round. And then in the third round, Usman had a takedown, but Edwards outstruck him. Right? Got up pretty quickly. The takedowns that Usman had, not a lot of control time, not a lot of work he put down there either. Usman had a takedown. Edwards outstruck him on the feet. This was the fence grab round, obviously making it a 9-9. And then in the fourth round, Edward had a takedown. What makes this fight wonky, like if you were to rewatch it for like a pleasure sake, is that it's mostly going to be Edwards outstriking Usman, but Usman just trying to get him to the ground and not succeeding, and then also striking a little bit. What makes this fight also weird is that before I get to the fifth round, they were talking a lot about elevation. Now, I know it makes no sense to me because when I first hear that, I go, what the fuck does that matter? Usman trains at elevation, so why are we talking about it? Also, two, he lost the second round. He lost the second fight. So why the fuck are we talking about how elevation takes a toll in this? And I think maybe you can argue here that I guess the argument that was being presented was, if the fight wasn't at elevation, this is the result we get, which is Leon Edwards not getting taken down as frequent as he did in that second fight. And maybe that might be true. You go to the fifth round, Edwards outstruck Usman. Usman had a takedown, very little control time, very little to no ground and pound there, and then boom, Edwards gets up, outstrikes Usman. And that's how you get 48-46. You go to the judges' scorecards. I'm trying to read this. Ben Cartlidge, he gives the first to Edwards. He gives the second to Edwards. Honorable mention there. That round should have definitely gone to Usman. 9-9 in the third. And then 10-9 to Usman in the fourth. What the fuck? It's an honorable mention. It's a bad scorecard. And that's how you get 48-46. But the only thing that saved this is that he basically switched. He didn't switch. He switched rounds 2 and rounds 4. He switched them. You go to Chris Lee, also 48-46 for Edwards. His scorecard, he gives round 2 to Edwards, honorable mention there. He then gives also round 3 to Usman, making it a 10-8 round. Nonsense. And then gives the last 2 rounds to Edwards. Honorable mention there to Chris Lee. And then David Lethaby, who made it a draw somehow. Again, third round he gives to Usman, making it a 10-8. Gives the first round to Edwards, gives the second round to Usman, and then he gives the last 2 rounds to Leon, making it a 47-47. And that's the night. Just weird scorecards that made you go, what the fuck? What's going on? But you watch the fight and you're like, this guy won. What are we talking about here? That's all I got. Anderson Silva got inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was a great night of fights. Thankful for the 11:30 start time in the U.S. Thankful. Thank you all for listening. And if you enjoyed in some way or some capacity, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.